I think it's very clear that basically Hong Kong is a kind of good place for the Chinese companies to be listed here. Basically, we can see in the past few years, the Chinese companies they're facing a lot of headwinds globally, and right now we are seeing that this company coming up to Hong Kong to do that, and we can see the recent IPOs actually is very kind of attractive, and basically a lot of money funds goes into this market, and in the meantime the surprise to the market as well, which is that the Hong Kong index, Hang Seng index, doing pretty well this year as well. So I think we can see that it looks like a lot of kind of corporates are pumped into this market, but in the meantime it looks like more funds coming from all around Hong Kong, not only from China but also from the rest of the world. I think this is kind of an improving signal that showing that Hong Kong is become more kind of popular again, and in the meantime, we do see that the new consumption stocks become the stellar kind of points of this market as well. So I think basically when we talk to investors here and there, they're always concerned about tariffs. They're always concerned about China-U.S. relations. But in the meantime, they're kind of very confident to see that the so-called new consumption, which is made for China, kind of all these kind of users also from China, and manufacturing supply chain also in China. They're very confident to see, okay, these kind of companies will kind of make value for investors in the future.
We heard from Premier Li Qiang. He was saying that China is a mega-sized consumption powerhouse, and that's on top of being a manufacturing powerhouse. So we know it as, of course, an export, a huge exporter, the manufacturing hub of the world. But now, as it looks to become a consumption powerhouse, how do you think it'll go about doing that?
Well, I think it's kind of step by step. Basically, I look at the Chinese economy for almost 20 years. Basically, when we start, exports is actually most important numbers, when we look at. And I think, one thing I believe that, 10 years ago, we came to Hong Kong to buy iPhones. And right now, my wife actually is living here, and she's trying to get some iPhone from onshore China. We know that the government provides subsidies. And these kind of things clearly illustrate the kind of dynamics changes between Hong Kong the consumption trend in China as well.
And you mentioned that subsidies as well as the trade-in scheme. The China State Plan are saying that sales revenues of products under the consumer goods trade-in scheme surpassed 1.4 trillion yuan so far this year. So as far as remaining confident and capable of growth, of course, they're expecting economic growth of around 5%. How convinced are you that China can do this? Yes, it was very strong in the first half of this year because there was all this front loading. But how does the second half look?
Well, I think in the last time when we talked about China economy, I think I'm the only one saying that China will still try to achieve the 5% growth. So I think it's very clear that when we talked about the tariffs, the manufacturers, the exporters, they gradually get used to it, and the market actually really is not very scared about what's going on between China and the U.S. We know what will happen. Basically, there probably no deal in the future. But the most important thing is still try to find your leeways and find your comparative advantage. And I think when we just look at the video from IKEA guy, I think it's very clear that when we go shopping on China, it's always that pricing go lower and lower, and I actually get a very high quality, which is different from 20 years ago. So given all this, which means that we are seeing an economy where they always keep costs lower and maintain relatively improving kind of quality. I think when we do that, it's always it's very clear, and my kids always try to go shopping online, and they're always waiting for their deliveries every day. And these kind of things are actually really happening here and there in China across the borders. So I think in the future, probably when we have cross-border payment become more convenient, these kind of things will also be supported maybe better in the future.